It's the Critic Circle with me, Charles Gross, and Leslie Hoban Blake. Tonight, the year that's passed, the year that's coming, reviews of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and Meet Me in St. Louis, plus a tribute to Rebecca Luker. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Critic Circle. And hello again, Leslie.
Hello, Charlie. Happy New Year. This is New Year's Eve that we're doing this show.
We are taping this on New Year's Eve. People will be seeing this a little after.
Of the worst year ever in my entire life, and it's a long life.
Yes. And I know about your life, so that's saying something. It really was a horrible year, although I'm thinking the second half of 2019 wasn't so great for me, but let's get to work. We're going to start off with the best shows we saw on stage and the best virtual shows that we saw this year. So I'm starting with West Side Story, which I didn't think would make my list because I had a lot of problems with this show, including the lack of dancing, the overuse of video, and the fact that they took I Feel Pretty out of it. But at the end of the show, I really felt the emotion and the drama of it. So despite myself, I am including it.
You know the old joke, Charlie, but aside from that, Mrs. Lincoln, what did you think of the play? Well,
yeah, exactly.
I didn't like any of that stuff. I don't have playbills to hold up, but we will intersperse my playbills. My favorite, I'm going to start with my revivals. My favorite revivals, two of them were off-Broadway. One of them was Boseman and Lena, which we saw at the Signature Theater, a very powerful play by Ethel Fugard. And particularly in this time of problems with immigration, so meaningful, so much more meaningful even than when I saw it before. So that's my one of my three favorite revivals. Go ahead.
I am traveling off Broadway to a revival that was substantially rewritten, much for the better. This is the unsinkable Molly Brown. I guess you'd call it the other Meredith Willson musical. Probably best known in these parts because one of the songs was used as the Wonderama theme. A really excellent updating of the show, which I very much enjoyed.
Well, it's also the Meredith Willson play that we got to see because we didn't get to see the other Meredith Willson
We'll be talking about that later.
My second revival is on Broadway, and my second revival was Betrayal. It was a really gorgeously framed production that just knocked my socks off.
Okay.
Let me just say that it's Harold Pinter. It's not one of my favorite plays, but this production made it a really, really incredible.
Okay. The Inheritance, kind of an Angels in America for the 21st century. It was as long as Angels. It was not as good as Angels, but it still packed a pretty solid wallop.
I liked it. It was an Angels wannabe, but I didn't know that it needed to be two nights. That's just my comment. Back off Broadway for my last revival, and my last revival is Little Shop of Horrors with. Yes, it was just incredible with Christian Borla, and it was just, I don't know, we both walked out just humming everything and singing everything and feeling wonderful about it. And
it reminds me what a Broadway score or an off-Broadway score should sound like, and we haven't had enough of that. It really was an amazing show. This is also off-Broadway, a new show. This was called Halfway Bitches Go Straight to Heaven, an excellent ensemble taking place, I guess, in a halfway house in New York City. Beautifully, beautifully done.
Written by Stephen Adly Gurgis, of whom I'm extraordinarily fond, who's part of the Labyrinth Company. And my new plays lead off with the play we saw off-Broadway and on-Broadway, Slave Play, which has been nominated for 12 Tonys, and we'll talk about Tonys at another time, if there ever are the Tonys. An incredible new play by a new playwright called Jeremy Harris, who was a wonder to behold.
Now, of course, a lot of plays went virtual after the theaters closed. There were quite a few of them. My absolute favorite was Love Letters with Bryan Cranston and Sally Field, directed by Jerry Zaks. It is a play that's on stage. It's two people talking at a desk, so it was the perfect play to do with a Zoom, and it's a great play to begin with, and this cast and crew made it even better.
Interesting. Yeah. And also at the beginning of when people were Zooming, so nobody really knew how to use the technique that well. So it was probably a good choice. I didn't see it, but I think it's a good choice on your part. My second new play is Girl from the North Country, the music of Bob Dylan. Again, we saw it off Broadway. Thank goodness. It was the last show I saw on March 11th. And if there had to be a last show, I'm glad that was the one that I got to see. It's a play set in the Depression in America. It has nothing to do with, it's written by an Irishman. It was directed by him. He put Bob Dylan's music in. An amazing piece of work. Not enough people got to see it, unfortunately.
And finally, two shows by another newcomer, Charles, what's his name? I'm blanking out on the guy's name, but he had one at the United Solo Festival, How I Found an Affordable Apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan Without Really Trying. And then later on, a virtual show at the Rochester Fringe Festival called Tales of Stockbridge.
Yeah, you know, that guy wrote me a note, and I didn't see his name on that note either. There you go. What can I say? My last play of the best of the season is also my best play of the season. And it was The Christmas Carol, written by Jack Thorne, who wrote the Harry Potter plays. And it starred Campbell Scott, and it was just a pure old-fashioned theatrical experience, no projections, no anything that couldn't be done on a stage. And I loved it for that. It just was amazing.
Well, I also have A Christmas Carol on my list, but this was a one-man show, which could have done very well on stage, but in 10 was done for the virtual stage, and that was Jefferson Mays.
Who played all the characters.
Played all the characters, yes.
I do agree with you on that. Virtually speaking, that would be my favorite virtual play as well.
Yeah. There were quite a few plays that we didn't get to see this year. And some of them, unfortunately, we may have lost the opportunity. Others, hopefully, we will get to see. Top on my list was Music Man with Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster. That would have made a wonderful Meredith Willson bookend to the unsinkable Molly Brown.
Absolutely. One of the ones I desperately wanted to see. And here I do have a playbill, even though it's not a playbill. Flying Over Sunset. This is an advertisement. Flying Over Sunset is written and directed by James Lapine. You would have had me at James Lapine, except it's also about LSD, Cary Grant, Aldous Huxley, and Claire Booth Luce. You would have had me at any of those. I'm desperate to see this play, so I don't know if it's going to go or not. It was at Lincoln Center.
Okay. Another one on my list is Company. This is the Sondheim musical, which would have been a very interesting version. Patti LuPone playing the Elaine Stritch role, but a female Bobby. In other words, a female bachelorette instead of a bachelor. And I love the show in general. I was very curious to see how the sex change affected it.
Show is being imported from London, and it won all sorts of awards over there.
Yes.
Next on my list is the Lehman trilogy. And the Lehman trilogy was at the Armory originally. We missed it. We were not invited to the Armory. But then it was coming to Broadway. It's directed by Sam Mendes and stars, among others, Simon Russell Beale. So I was just ecstatic to see that. It's about a family, and it's a drama. And I just couldn't, it's gone. We didn't get to see it.
And my final one, Plaza Suite. This was a revival of the Neil Simon play with Sarah Jessica Parker and Matthew Broderick. Very rare to see them performing together. I've never seen the play. It takes place in the New York Plaza Hotel. And that's so far, we think it will be coming back.
Did you never see the movie?
No. I saw California Suite. Which
okay.
I thought was absolutely horrible. I'm hoping Plaza Suite will be better.
We'll go back and see it. Half of the Odd Couple, Walter Matthau and Maureen Stapleton, I think, did the movie. I think that's who did the movie. I could be wrong about the woman.
Walter Matthau was also in California Suite.
I know.
Interestingly.
I know. Okay, my last one is Take Me Out, which I loved the first time. Would have loved to see the second time. And again, I have a visual for that. Among the players were these guys that you, where do we go? Over here. No, over here. That's it.
Okay.
This one, you know who that is, right?
I really can't see the picture very well.
Jesse Tyler Ferguson, Patrick J. Adams, and Jesse Williams.
All of whom you would have gotten to see nude, taking showers.
No, you wouldn't have gotten to see Jesse Ferguson because he was playing the narrator part, so he wouldn't even get those on.
Okay.
If that's what
I honestly did not like Take Me Out the first time I saw it. I really do want to see the revival to see if my feelings have changed.
If it's aged well or not. Yes. Okay.
All right. It is time to talk about the future of Broadway.
Which we can't do unless we talk about what's contemporarily going on. Seoul, Korea, and London.
Okay.
And we were able to read an article by a young woman named Sammy Canold, who's an American director and was in Seoul, Korea, directing to Cameron McIntosh and what's his name? Lord
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Thank you, Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber. Two of his plays for the Korean audience, and this was in the stage originally. They've controlled. I'm just going to read very quickly what it says. Korea theater has been fundamentally redefined, not as a mass gathering, but as a controlled event and one that is critical to national morale and countless livelihoods. Yay, that's exactly true. Their attitude was that the theaters are uniquely controllable spaces where you can predict the flow of traffic, easily track and trace due to assigned seating, and control air filtration and follow hygienic best practices. Those were the
So what they would do, people would have to fill in forms. Needless to say, people would have to wear masks. People were sprayed with disinfectant. The theaters were disinfected. I think in some cases the actors were quarantined in their own bubble, not unlike what we've been doing with athletes, and it worked there.
Was there a plastic shield in front of the stage by any chance?
I don't.
That would be something.
I did not see anything about that. I think the front rows were removed in some cases, but aside from that, there was no social distancing in the theaters.
Right.
Now the question is, will that work here? And I guess the answer is it depends. The one thing that you have to understand is that in general, South Korea was much more prepared for the pandemic because they had one in 2015, and the compliance and the government has been much more straightforward. The government has been leading. You haven't had anyone in government officials poo-pooing masks, and for the most part, you have a population that is willing to accept the restrictions that are needed. You unfortunately do not have that here. There is also
people who were wearing masks a lot, regardless of this particular pandemic, has a throwback to the other pandemic. So
the other problem is there is now a new strain of COVID developing. It's in England. It's been discovered here, which is much more contagious. So what worked then may not work now. So I am also, unfortunately, only lukewarm to this proposal.
Well, Korea also has a difference because unlike England and America, or New York for Broadway, we have people coming from all over the world to see our theater. People don't go to South Korea to see theater. South Koreans go to see theater. So you never know who's going to be, who's carrying what, who's not symptomatic. All of those things make it different here. Also, I don't know that our air filtration systems and our hygiene is up to the standards that they're talking about.
They can certainly, I think it mostly has to do with HEPA filters, and those can be put in relatively easily.
The audience population is different. And I would highly recommend, if we were going to do anything about opening, that we did have every other seat, that we don't have people sitting shoulder to shoulder. And I would recommend a shield of some sort, a plastic shield around the stage, because the spittle that comes out of actors' mouths when they work, and I'm a former actress, and believe me, it happened with me too. It's just a question of, everything going on. Right. And it's not a question of clearing the couple of front rows, because this stuff is transmitted virally through the air, so it can go as far back.
Well, again, but there is a distance, and if it's ventilated, again, that was happening in Korea, and they did seem to keep it under control. I think what will happen is it's all really going to depend on how effective the vaccine is and how fast we can distribute it. Once we have achieved,
and how compliant the people are, and God knows people are not compliant.
Well, that too, but to get into the theater, they will have to be compliant. I think once we have a herd immunity, once we have the situation under control, I think we will see the theater making a major and quick comeback. People are chomping at the bit. People want to get out. That's why so many people are discarding the rules we have. So then when it becomes legal again, people are going to come out, and I think it's going to happen a lot faster than people realize.
Okay, well, here are a couple of things. Number one, you cannot keep the prices the way they are. People are now poor. Across the board, people have lost money in every way you can possibly think of. So people cannot afford $175 for a ticket to go to the theater. It's going to have to be brought back to a reasonable amount of money where there are seats that people can afford. Because you're not going to find, and maybe you'll find tourists coming in to do that, but you're not going to find New Yorkers coming in to do that. You're not going to find people from Atlanta coming up to see theater. that rate.
But if you look at the statistics, the people who are in the financial class to see theater, they have been holding on to their jobs at a greater level. Plus, the stock market has been going up, up, up.
So now, excuse me, Charlie. So now that means that what you're saying is that theater will now definitely become the playground of the rich only. That's awful. That's a dreadful thing.
Again, I'm not saying I like the idea. Listen, I'd rather have it turn out to be your way, where more people can go to the theater. But I am pointing out that people who now can afford the theater are probably still able to afford it. I'm not happy about this, Leslie. I don't like it. But well, this is how I am calling it as I see it.
I'm in violent disagreement with you.
You know what? I hope you're right. I would love to be wrong on this.
By the way, England opened its theaters for 5 minutes, and there were shows going on, and there was an impassioned speech from the stage on the first night of Girl from the North Country, where they opened and played one night and were made to close, and the leading actor stood up and said, this is outrageous, and what are you going to do about it? And the government, I don't know. Nobody stood up on our stages because they was closed the next day. They were open on the 11th, they were closed on the 12th. That was it. Nobody had a chance to make an impassioned speech. Okay, so moving on to
theater still exists, sort of. We have been covering virtual theater, and that's anything from a basic Zoom to a full-fledged movie. And tonight we're covering a little more than a basic Zoom, but definitely a full-fledged movie. This is August Wilson's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. It is unique in the Wilson. It takes a special place in the August Wilson canon in that it was his first play on Broadway, not the first one he wrote, but his first play on Broadway, and the only one that does not take place in Pittsburgh, PA.
It's an extraordinary piece of work. The star power on this film is amazing. Viola Davis, Chadwick Boseman's last film, sadly, Coleman Domingo, Glynn Turman, and Jeremy Shamos and Michael Potts. These are the stars. But the main two characters are Viola Davis as Ma Rainey and Chadwick Boseman as a guy named Levy, who is really an amalgam. Ma Rainey was a real person. Levy is an amalgam of all kinds of Black musicians of the time period, trying desperately to become famous and having their own bands and writing music and whatnot. And Ma is able to, because they want her signature, they want to be able to record her voice, Ma is able to make demands, even though she's a Black woman at a time when Black women had no rights of any kind.
Right. Well, this takes place in a recording studio in Chicago, and Ma is making demands. She wants her stuttering nephew on the album. She wants her Coca-Cola, but you have to ask, and the people running the studio and Ma's manager are white, but very often you have to ask, is it a racial thing or is it simply a diva? I could easily
no. There's no question that it's a racial thing, because Ma Rainey was only one of several. She talks about Bessie Smith, the young girl who's her girlfriend wants to come out of. No, this is the one route that females had at that time. It's also the time of Josephine Baker, don't forget, who had to go to France to get to do something. No, it's so much a racial thing. It's they go in a side entrance. They're in a room without any air. That's not where the white musicians go. No, this is totally a racial thing. And all of the dialogue is about race. It's all about what the white people are doing to them. No. It's a racial thing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I think to an extent it's both. But what does drive it home as a racial thing is the end. You talk the character of Levy.
Do we need to run to the end without talking a little bit about what goes on before the end?
Okay, then by all means, they make the album. Ma makes demands. The band discusses the racial situation. Levy overplays his hand. He's ambitious. He's talented, but he doesn't know when to stop.
And dialogue,
that gets him into trouble.
The dialogue is some of the most. I've seen it twice. I sat through this movie twice because it is so it visceral. It went right to my heart to hear this kind of dialogue spoken by people who can chew it up and give it back to us. And it wasn't scenery chewing. I mean, there was a lot of that going on, but this was getting to the heart of what it was about the pain and the anguish. And this is August Wilson. making, these are all apocryphal stories. We don't know that this actually happened. We know that Ma Rainey recorded, but we don't know about any of the rest of this.
No, this is fictional. But one thing that George C. Wolfe adds at the end, and this is important because
it's about among his most powerful pieces, because the end is not August Wilson. The end is tacked on. What's there that is August Wilson is everything that comes before the end. And I just wanted to see how visceral and how important it was. Now, go ahead.
But the end, because we were discussing, diva versus racial, but to make sure that the point gets across, Levy has songs that he wants to record, but the studio will only purchase the songs from him. And then at the end, we see these songs being recorded by a white artist. And yes, that is George C. Wolfe and not August Wilson, but it still hits home. And I think it gives it a very powerful punch.
It's
your
not
final word.
George C. Wolfe, because the script was written by Ruben Santiago Hudson. And this is produced by Denzel Washington, whose plan is to put all of August Wilson's plays on screen. And it is Ruben Santiago's Hudson's mission to revive all of August Wilson's plays on Broadway again. So between the two, you have a powerful force, and Ruben did the script.
We're going to see a lot of August Wilson, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Okay.
None better than this. If we're talking about what's great, this is one of the greatest things I have ever seen on stage, off stage. Just incredible.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's still pretty amazing and highly recommended.
We also know that Viola Davis and Chadwick Boseman are going to wind up being nominated for Oscars. So
I certainly hope so. All right, moving on. This is the Irish Rep Company, one of our favorite theater companies. And this was a restaging, revival, and abridged Meet Me in St. Louis, based primarily on the Judy Garland movie. And this is a family. They're in St. Louis at the turn of the 19th/20th century. The World's Fair is coming. It's basically, we see them on a trolley, and there's the trolley song. We see them at Christmas. We see them in Halloween. Oh, wait, the father has been offered a job in New York. They're all going to have to leave. And will the two older women get their boyfriends? And will the two younger girls, what kind of mischief will they get into? And then that's basically the...
So the thing that you left out was it's reimagined, did you say? It's reimagined by using green screen techniques.
Yes.
So that even though these people are all zooming from their own homes, they all were sent all the equipment necessary, camera-wise and green screen-wise, to have the same backdrops. You have the outside of the house, you have the inside of the house, you have the porch, you have the trolley moving through scenery. It's as we watch this online stuff, we have gone from the two people sitting next to each other in love letters,
like us,
to a full cast being able to move through things, to actually having an on-screen kiss, even though they're in two separate places, to dancing in the sense that they're over-the-shoulder shots and you see the person who's being danced with. You don't get the sense that this is a Zoom until the very last scene, where unfortunately, in order to get the whole house in, everybody looks about this big. But up until that point, the scenery was astonishing. The use of the camera work.
Yes, I agree. Although you can tell that they are not together. I certainly could. Sometimes. But it is in the space of 1 year, in the space of less than a year, it's pretty impressive how far we've come with these techniques.
Yes.
And we've already spoken about. I think in the future we are going to see more of this, even when theaters are opened again. I am hoping we will see more of this because there are just so many people who can't get to the theaters.
Or can't afford it.
Or can't afford it. This had Shirin Ahmed as Esther, the Judy Garland role. Also William Bellamy, Rufus Collins, Melissa Errico.
Melissa Errico is playing the part that Charlotte Moore played on Broadway when Charlotte Moore is now the director of the play.
Right. Underutilized, but when she's on, she's wonderful.
Well, it's interesting that she looked exactly like the daughter. And by the way, Melissa looks far too young to be anything but, elite.
I agree. Ali Ewald as the other daughter, Haley Kuka as Tootie, the youngest of the family.
Extremely interesting. Did you say J. Aubrey Jones as Grandpa?
I did not know.
Okay, because I know him.
But he was okay. And your conclusions?
Well, I mean, it's certainly come a long way. It's not perfect. It's getting better. I really love the trolley section very much. But overall, for example, the finale, I had problems with the size of the people versus the size of the house. These are nitpicky things. Overall, it was charming, and I was really happy to see it, and it was uplifting at the end of the year.
I missed the if you like a me like I like a you number. That was taken out either for time or more likely for PC purposes.
Political correctness, I'm sure.
Yeah. All in all, I agree. I think charming is the proper word for it. I call it a very pleasant spoonful of sugar to chase away the harsh medicine we've all had to take lately.
Nice way to put it.
This is what we used to have in the New York Times. You see how big it is? You see how many plays there are listed? This was the Broadway, small off-Broadway list, but mostly the Broadway list. We may never see that again. I pray that we do. I may never live to see it. You might, Charlie. I don't know.
Leslie, we're going to see it again, and I think we are going to see it a lot sooner than people realize. We're going to end our show this week with yet another tribute. It's been sad. We've been doing this every show. This was Rebecca Luker, who an amazingly beautiful, amazingly talented. She did roles on Broadway she played Maria in The Sound of Music. She played Marion in The Music Man, and she more than held her own with the likes of Julie Andrews, Shirley Jones, and Barbara Cook. An amazingly talented performer. Then I saw her in Mary Poppins, and I wondered, why isn't she playing Mary? But it turned out she was playing the mother, Mrs. Banks, and she added a new dimension and a new depth to the role that went far beyond how we've ever seen the character.
I just wanted to say something, though, and this is what was, for me, is saddest about Rebecca. Rebecca was only 59 when she died. She was married to Danny Burstein. They were a really power couple as far as Broadway couples go. But they didn't get to work together. And I would have loved to see them do something like Tally's Follies together, which I thought would have been a lovely show for them to do. But I think Rebecca was forced into, either jumped into or was forced into mother roles sooner. You know, Melissa Erica is playing her first mother role, and she's 49. So why did Rebecca Lucas start playing mother roles 20 years before? I would have loved to see her Anna in The King of Siam, you know, in The King.
Oh yes, absolutely. But and you know what she said? You know, I would have liked to have played the BITCH once in a while too.
Yes, and I think she would have been incredible in either 20th Century or Kiss Me Kate. I think she could have done either of those.
I would have been happy to see her in either role. It is time to wrap up the year. We look forward. We hope that the worst of this is behind us. We hope that this year will be so much better. And when it is, we hope to see you back on Two on the Aisle. And until then,
in the Critics Circle.
Myself.